I now host Right on Four Corners every Wednesday, 10:30 to 11, when I'll talk to local and regional authors. So please join me Wednesdays here on 90.9 FM KSJE Farmington.
KSJE is supported by San Juan Regional Medical Center, which is officially baby-friendly. This evidence-based initiative is designed to support mother-baby bonding and optimal infant feeding practices by upholding the 10 steps to successful breastfeeding. San Juan Regional Medical Center, officially baby-friendly, and serving the Four Corners since 1910. Find out more online at sanjuanregional.com. KSJE is supported by Sandstone Productions Outdoor Summer Theater, featuring the music of Elvis this summer. The Broadway musical All Shook Up will have you putting on your blue suede shoes and shaking your hips like it's now or never. The show performs every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday through July 27th. Enjoy an evening under the beautiful New Mexico stars. Concessions are available on site. Beer and wine from Wines of the San Juan available Fridays and Saturdays. Find out more about this jolt-worthy event at farmingtonnm.org/OST. 10 minutes past 8 o'clock. It's Thursday morning, July 11th. Good morning, everyone. I'm Scott Micklin, and thank you for tuning in to KSJE 90.9 FM, also 103.3 FM in the Durango area. We're glad that you're with us. Welcome aboard. Also to our viewers who are watching our visual radio program live this morning as we stream to the KSJE Facebook page and YouTube channel. Good morning to you, everyone. Outside our studios here at San Juan College, it's 72 degrees in Farmington right now. Winds are out of the east at 16 miles per hour as we show you a view of the Animas Valley and some of the cars traveling along Browning Parkway is what that is, kind of towards the center right of your screen as we take a look from our camera perched here at San Juan College, zooming in across the valley. Our forecast has a little bit of a change to it weather pattern-wise. We've got a chance of a shower or thunderstorm popping up every afternoon for the next several days, some of that monsoon moisture pattern. Still warm, though, 95 for a high today and tomorrow, 61 overnight tonight, 63 for a low tomorrow night. Again, mid to lower 90s for the weekend and early on into next week. Still a chance of an afternoon shower or thunderstorm and an overnight lows in the mid-60s, and some gusty winds are possible during some of those thunderstorms. Potentially, so be aware of that every afternoon. Coming up on the program this morning, I'll be talking with Arvin Trujillo. He's the new CEO of Four Corners Economic Development. Economic development, of course, a big topic in our region these days, so lots to talk about with Mr. Trujillo coming up in the next few moments right here on KSJE. Later on during the 8 o'clock hour today, we'll be talking with Jason Calcote from Citizens Trust and Investment Corporation. More about the economy coming up at 8:55 this morning on KSJE. Mick Hess follows, of course, roving with the arts news, and some great classical music coming up today at 9:06. And we invite you, of course, to connect with us on social media. You can, of course, follow us on Facebook. You can subscribe to the brand new KSJE channel on YouTube. Check us out on Twitter, of course, and there's a new KSJE page on Instagram as well. So we hope you will check us out on social media over the next few days. My guest in our visual radio studios this morning, Arvin Trujillo, is here. He is the new CEO of Four Corners Economic Development. And Mr. Trujillo, welcome to KSJE. It's good to have you here.
Yeah, Scott, I'm happy to be here. Looking forward to our discussion here.
Me too, and congratulations on your new job, basically, right? Because
yes, it is.
It's still relatively new, right?
This is my second month.
Second month, okay. So welcome, and again, congratulations. You are now the CEO of Four Corners Economic Development, and so its main job is to look for economic development opportunities for the region, correct?
We're looking at that, and mainly we're also really focusing on how do we begin to diversify the economy, not only here in San Juan County, but looking at the four-state region as well.
Right. And that's something we've heard about a lot recently. And you and I were talking before we came on the air that for a long time, a lot of folks weren't as concerned as we are today about diversifying the economy because those mainstays of the economy were always there to fall back on, right?
That's true. I mean, the transition that's happening now in the energy sector is just traumatic in some aspects. But, we see a number of significant changes in coal, oil, and gas. And those have been some of the major economic drivers here in the county as well as in the four-state region here.
Right.
And so we're looking at how do we begin to prepare ourselves, move into another phase as things continue their transitional efforts.
Right. And a little bit about your background, because you have some insights into some of these industries, too, that maybe folks aren't aware of, right? You worked for a long time in some of these industries.
Well, again, my career has gone at different paths along the way. I went, education-wise, I went into the mining field.
Right.
I was a mining engineer up in Wyoming. I moved down here into the Four Corners area. I was working for then Utah International, which then became BHP. Worked there for a number of years in all three mining operations here. And then in '99, President Kelsey Begay asked me to join his administration. So I joined the administration there as the executive director for the Division of Natural Resources for the nation. I figured it'd be a 4-year thing. But after President Begay did not win re-election, I was ready to come back into the private sector, but then President Joe Shirley asked me to stay on. So
that doesn't happen every time, does it?
I don't think it does that often.
Right.
Ended up staying another 8 years, so I was 12 years there. After that, I then accepted a position with Arizona Public Service Company with the Four Corners Power Plant as the manager of the Government Relations Group, which we interacted with the community as well as all the governments, the tribal governments, as well as both Arizona and New Mexico state governments.
Sure, right.
And then from there, I accepted the position here with Four Corners Economic Development.
Very good. Well, again, I think a lot of the players then that are in the room for some of these conversations about economic diversity and what's next.
I've had the opportunity to meet a number of different people. I think the other thing that helps me is that I'm from the area. I graduated from Kirtland Central High School.
Go Broncos.
And so again, having that background and knowing the people and then having a good network outside the area, I think has been something that's been real beneficial for me in this position.
Sure. Well, we wish you good luck, of course, because it's a big job, we know. But I know a lot of folks are waiting with bated breath on what's next, because it is a little uncertain future, and I think that concerns and scares a lot of folks, because we don't have that oil, gas, mining to rely on as much as we used to, and you were telling me that we can't really expect it to stick around forever.
That's true. I mean, look at what's happening right now. Looking back at the 70s and 80s, we had the Pittsburgh Midway mining operation around close to Window Rock.
Right.
We had the Black Mesa mining operation, which had two mining operations there. One supplying coal to Navajo Generating Station, another one supplying coal to the Mojave Generating Station in California. We had the San Juan mine, La Plata mine, and Navajo mine. Supplying coal to San Juan Generating Station and Four Corners. We have the Cholla power plant up in Holbrook.
Right.
And again, there we had mining operations supplying coal from Pruitt and from other locations here in the northern portions of New Mexico. And then you also have the Pruitt operation, the Escalante power plant. Well, since that period, now we've got Mojave's closed and done with,
right,
which shut down one of the Black Mesa operations. Now a generation station is closing the end of this year.
This year, right? And Page.
Which means another part of Black Mesa will be shutting down. San Juan Generating Station right now is scheduled to be closed in 2022, which again would also affect San Juan Mine. The Cholla power plant right now is being, the discussion right now is that could possibly close in 2025. You got the Navajo mine here. I mean, the Four Corners Power Plant, which could possibly close down in 2031. And with that would be Navajo Mine. So looking at those scenarios.
Yeah. And that date comes from, pardon me for interrupting, but that date comes from because that is the date that the coal contract with Navajo Mine expires and needs to be renegotiated. That's the idea,
that's when it has to be renegotiated. And you have 5 owners up there at the Four Corners. But 3 of those owners up to this point have indicated they would like to make a change with their energy generation.
Not get it from coal anymore.
And not get it from coal anymore.
So, yeah, so that's scary. And so, as you say, the landscape has changed. And so in some of these other communities that have lost those jobs and that infrastructure, they have found something else, hopefully.
Well, there are a number of other communities around the country, as I've been watching them. They are also struggling, but they're finding new ways to bring industrial development within their particular communities. And that's what we're wanting to strive. And that's one of the main focuses with Four Corners Economic Development is how do we begin to diversify our economy? Because we have a number of organizations and a number of tribes in the region here who are all working to improve their community development and their economic development. But they're all working in silos. And so we've initiated a process through Four Corners Economic Development called the Future Forum, where we brought in the 4 states and members of the tribes. We had our first meeting back in 2017. We had about 140 people attend that. And in those meetings, people began to realize that many of the priorities that each of these communities see, or many of the opportunities they see, are the same that other communities are working on. And so now we're beginning to understand if we can begin to collaborate together as a 4-state region, there are some real possibilities that begin to open up for us.
And that's what I was learning from your predecessor, Warren Unsicker, when he would talk about the Futures Forum, and by kind of combining the power of all 4 states and that population base, that congressional delegation perhaps, that you now have 8 senators instead of just 2, and the representatives, and this is what you're talking about. By combining the 4 states, you kind of multiply all that potential negotiating power and influence and what have you, I suppose. And if you can all speak with one voice, that maybe gets some more attention than just 4 different voices from 4 different states asking for the same thing.
That's true, and we can even begin to work within each of our states. Because as you look at the Four Corners, this area traditionally throughout the decades, we've provided the opportunities for many of our metropolitan areas within our particular states to grow and to prosper. We've generated oil and gas here, we've generated energy here, and what I've seen from my experience in the mining industry and also working in concert with the utilities is that a lot of the equipment and supplies that were needed to run these particular industries were brought from the north, from Denver, from Salt Lake City, into the region. And the resulting power that was generated and the oil and gas that was generated all went south.
Interesting.
Into El Paso, Albuquerque, Santa Fe, down to Phoenix, Tucson. And so again, we've been like that red-headed stepchild up here. And it's not been us. You look at Farmington, you look at Durango, you look at Blanding and Monticello, you look at the northeastern portions of Arizona.
They relate to their respective states.
As they relate to their respective states.
Sure.
Most of the attention is down in Phoenix and Tucson.
Right.
In New Mexico here, most of the attention is in Albuquerque, Santa Fe, the Rio Grande area.
Right.
In Colorado, it's the Denver, Boulder area. In Utah, it's the Provo, Salt Lake City area. And so we've generated a lot of things to help those communities. But again, we've been fine because we've had the actual raw material and generation, and we had the industries in place. All that's changing. And because of that, we somewhat neglected things in terms of infrastructure development. And as we were speaking earlier before, I was caught in that mindset because we would see the economy kind of go down and dip in the region here. But everyone would say, well, coal's okay.
Yeah.
When oil and gas comes back up, hey, we'll be all right again. We're doing fine. It'll all come back.
Right.
Well, we've gotten to the point to where that that process that we've been used to won't be returning this time around. And so we've got to begin to look at how do we begin to develop our infrastructure, and how do we begin to work together to begin to market this area and look for new opportunities that can begin to develop here in the Four Corners.
Right, and that's your job.
That's my job.
Right, and the job of your colleagues and your board, and
Yes.
And what you are talking about. My guest this morning, Arvin Trujillo, is here. He is the new CEO of Four Corners Economic Development. He's been on the job for about 2 months.
That's correct.
And we'll be starting to kind of get the word out and meet people and talk to folks. And I have to imagine that none of this is possible without talking to the tribes. They are still major players when it comes to economic development and job creation and investment in this region. You can't have a conversation without including them.
You can't. Because, again, you look at such basic areas like land use. San Juan County, right now, about 6% of the land here is private land.
Private, that's right. The rest of it.
The rest is all public land.
Right.
And a part of that is tribal land as well as BLM land. And so if we were to get anything in here, such as a railroad, we'd have to get right away from the Navajos in order for us to reach the I-40 corridor.
Right.
Which would be vital for us to get that real, true economic development and diversity here in the region. And so the tribes are vital in that aspect in terms of water rights, land use, and how do we look at those partnerships so that we can begin to get the attention of Congress. Because when you also bring the tribes into it, that raises the level of notoriety into what you're doing. And so again, those are some of the things that we're looking at, as well as capital.
Right.
Because the Southern Utes are a very wealthy tribe. The Navajos are a very wealthy tribe. The Lagunas down south of us also have been very successful in what they've been doing. But how much is being invested here? The Southern Utes most of their investments are in the Gulf. They own oil rigs. They own land. They're looking at pipelines and etc. Their investments is down in the Gulf area. The Navajo Nation, they send their investments up to New York City. They look at the stock market. They look at hedge funds. They look at money markets, etc. Which means everybody else around the country is using that money, but it's not being invested here. And then again, the Lagunas are also looking at investments, but again, it's not in the region here. So how do we begin to work collectively and in a positive manner on both aspects, tribes and non-tribal communities, to meet our goals and to bring some of that capital back here that it benefits everybody.
Sure.
And so everybody sees wins in that effort.
Right. And when you talk about the Navajo tribe especially, I have to think that some of these changes that are coming to these power plants and coal mines are going to really impact the Navajo Nation. When we talk about the Kayenta mine and the Navajo generating station in Page just shutting down, that's revenue that's lost to the tribe and jobs for tribal members, correct?
Yes, that's correct. And again,
so they have to be paying attention to some of these conversations.
They are, and they're looking at ways. I mean, I'm a Navajo, and I look at this aspect, and just like many families here, we're looking at how we can educate our young people, our children, and hopefully one day they come back and live in this area. But I'm just like many families out there. I've got 3 children, worked hard. They went through high school. They went through college. They got their education. But now I've got one that lives in Baltimore, Maryland. I've got another one that lives in Denver, Colorado. And I got another one that lives in Beaverton, Oregon. Doing great. They're successful. But they're contributing to those communities here. I would love it if they were back here in this area and able to contribute to the Four Corners region here.
Right.
That would be beneficial to everybody.
And that seems to be the common thread is jobs.
Yes.
And so what keeps those young people in their community would be the ability to find a job, at least most of it. I mean, there's friends and other social things, and if you want the big city life, that's a whole other story. But if they can't find a job, they're not going to stick around.
That's correct. That's correct. And I was lucky in that, well, I don't know if to call it luck, but I was fortunate in that I chose a career path, mining. And mining was big here, so I was able to eventually come back.
That's
I went
right.
to Wyoming, but I was eventually able to come back and be in this area and raised my family here in this area, and I had a good job, and I could do that and do it in a successful manner. But again, that's the key, is how do we bring some of those jobs and opportunities for people, both for the native communities as well as the non-native communities, because everybody has that and everybody wants a good quality of life, and so that's what we want to do. And I think you're in the same mindset as I, Scott. I mean, we look around this area, we love the area, the fishing, the recreational opportunities, the diversity. There are a number of things that we enjoy in this area. And as people do come in, they see some real positives to the area. But again, it's looking for those jobs and those opportunities to be able to make a good living and to be able to take care of their families and to do those kind of things. And so that's what we're focused on right now, is how do we provide the opportunities for those things to happen.
Right. And that's, I guess, another concern, too, because if a job goes away at the mine, it's not the same as a job coming in from a new fast food place.
No.
Those aren't the same.
They're not the same
salaries.
thing.
I mean,
right.
It's a job, but they're not one-to-one.
Well, again, you look at these jobs that are currently in place with both the mines and the utilities. You know, you're looking at, including benefits and et cetera, they're running anywhere from $85,000 to $120,000 a year.
I know I'm in the wrong line of work. I understand. I know. They're great jobs, and they provide for families. They've offered those folks to provide for them. But if they go away, that's another part of your job, I guess, is to how do you find those replacement jobs that are still at the same level or close to it as what we're maybe losing potentially.
Well, again, we got challenges on different fronts because we're seeing that effect right now in the oil and gas industry. And we're even seeing a double hit on that, because as we see production slowly start returning here, the technology that's in place now within oil and gas is such that they don't need to hire back as many people as before. And as an example on how technology has improved, there are people out there who remember all the El Paso natural gas plant camps that were out throughout this area.
Right, sure.
But then as technology developed and they were able to enhance that technology at their plants, all those camps are gone now. And so again, we're seeing that type of effort being put forward by the oil and gas industry. And so how do we, again, look at that phase or look at that industry too and prepare ourselves for the future? Right.
So we're hearing a lot from the county and the city about outdoor recreation, and that seems to be the buzzword. The state has come up with a cabinet-level secretary, I think, and a department to talk a little bit about that as well. And that seems to be what everyone is pushing for, and it's, I think, as Mr. Unsicker would call it, low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Is that something that Forsed is talking about as well? Is getting on this effort?
We're also in that role of seeing how we can help support outdoor recreation. How can we look at those opportunities? But we're also looking at what will support economic development as a whole. As I indicated, one real benefit would be to establish some type of bulk transportation system from the Four Corners area to the I-40 corridor, whether that be rail or some other alternative means. We're looking at ways to possibly get that piece jump-started. I know it's something that's been discussed for decades. I can remember when that was discussed earlier. But again, things have changed, and I think the mindsets are changing. And so that's something we're exploring. The other thing we're really looking at, too, is how do we begin to enhance broadband development? We're working with Southwest Colorado right now, and we're going to be working with and having discussions with the Navajo Nation to see how can we bring fiber optic lines into this area and make broadband development, which is your internet, gain more speed, more reliability, gain redundancy, and do so in a manner that is cost effective and beneficial to everybody out here.
Sure.
So those are some of the things that we're tackling right now as I talk about infrastructure.
Right.
Outdoor recreation is a vital part of this. As you indicate, as everybody has been hearing, the film industry is something that the state of New Mexico is going after. We are looking at that too here in the Four Corners area. We're looking at, we've got some small businesses here that are, I think, in that stage that they're ready to grow. But again, we need to get some of those basic infrastructure pieces in place that will allow these businesses to expand and grow and provide new opportunity into the future. So those are some of the things we're looking at.
Okay. Well, that's a good list. I think those are, and because those all have growth potential, I think, all
Yes.
the things you talk about. And that's important. And I think infrastructure by fiber optics and internet, I mean, that then speaks to maybe location neutral workers who maybe just want to come here. They can work from anywhere with a laptop and an internet connection. And if they want to go mountain biking, you can't do that in Manhattan, so you come to Farmington, New Mexico, or San Juan County, right?
Exactly.
And those are the kind of opportunities that we could offer folks if we have
Right.
that reliable internet infrastructure that you're talking about. The railroad's one of my pet projects that I always like talking about because I think it offers a lot of potential for the area, even though it's, I think a lot of folks consider it older technology, but yet how do you move heavy stuff in and out of a community? Trucking is a way, but it's expensive, and rail is still a relatively cost-effective way to do that if you have a link to the major east-west routes, which would be the I-40 corridor, as you talked about. And so to hear that project is maybe still alive and kicking is news to me.
Yes.
And the tribe has to be a partner with that, of course.
The tribe needs to be a partner with that, but the state is also starting to pick up and they're wanting to do some things there too. And so we're working with them. We've got House Memorial 56, which is looking at, through the state legislature, doing an impact study saying if we do get rail in this part of the state of New Mexico, how could that possibly impact the whole state? And would there be real benefits in doing that? And again, people are looking at what makes sense in terms of investment. How should we invest in our state? Because again, the idea is how do we begin to grow, much like like the three other states around us.
Right.
Well, really four. Texas is growing.
Right. They are.
Colorado is seeing a lot of growth happening.
Arizona and Utah, sure.
They're all seeing real positive efforts within their economic base. But again, New Mexico still is looking at different things to begin that process there. So we're really striving to work with the state and our surrounding states to figure out how do we begin to bring some of that prosperity here into the Four Corners area.
Right. And I know the rail project is very expensive. Everyone tells me that I don't know what it is per mile, but it's expensive. But a lot of folks tell me, too, that it would maybe have an impact in the other three states because none of them have rail links either in their parts of the Four Corners. And so to have something that stops, even if it stops in Farmington, could certainly cut the labor costs or the transportation costs into southwest Colorado or Utah or even northeast Arizona.
Well, again, that's where we see real benefits, especially within the state of Colorado, here in New Mexico, and in Arizona. Looking at northeast Arizona, northwestern New Mexico here, and southwest Colorado, most, if not all, of the traffic that goes into communities in these areas come from the I-40 corridor. The truck haulage comes down I-40. They'll come down either 550, 491.
Right.
And even into southwest Colorado, they'll come through 550 and on towards this. They don't come over the pass.
No.
They go
not
around.
Usually. That's right.
And so again, if we can develop a connection to that I-40 corridor, that rail haulage not only would connect to other rail systems going east and west, but you have I-40 right there too. So you have natural truck haulage also going east and west. And once they connect to Albuquerque or Flagstaff, they can go north and south.
Right.
And so again, it's looking at those aspects and seeing what are those possibilities for us.
Those bigger pictures.
Those bigger pictures.
And to the credit, the tribe and the state, I think, have come through with improving the road transportation network. I think 491 is completely finished, I think.
Yeah.
Four lanes all the way between Shiprock and Gallup, and that has to be, and 550, of course, that has to be another boon for the area, even though it's not designated an interstate. It certainly helps when you're shopping the area around to potential investors and businesses, correct? To talk about our infrastructure and the ways to get in and out of here?
That is. And in fact, just to let you know, I was a part of, I kind of led the teams that led to those two roads being expanded when I was with the Division of Natural Resources for the Navajo
With the
Nation.
tribe, yeah.
So again, I know exactly what it took to get that in place. We wanted other things done, but we were able to at least change that from a 2-lane to a 4-lane highway on both sides. And so that has helped in a lot of different ways. But again, as you look at the kind of truck traffic that's going through, if you drive that road, you still see spots that are being damaged or because of the heavy traffic on there. And so again, how do we begin to address that? Does rail really bring an answer to that? And how do we begin to incorporate that aspect?
And a more comprehensive study may help answer some of those questions, it sounds like,
Yes.
from the state funding
Right.
aspect and things that you're talking about. And then I wanted to ask you, too, a little bit about the airport, and that's another thing that I know the city is working on, and that they've gotten some grants from the FAA, and there is a lot of positive discussions about bringing commercial air service back to Farmington, which, again, is another economic development plus.
It is. It is looking at that development, being able not only
Not everybody has a private jet they can fly in and out of for their movie set and then fly back to Hollywood,
That's right.
Yeah.
But being able to
Some of
have
us fly
that
commercial.
That's
Yeah.
right. But being able to bring some commercial services back into the Farmington area, as well as looking at being able to fly in and out with different goods and supplies, that would be a real plus to that aspect. And again, looking at how do we begin to really look at discussions. So are there ways that La Plata and Farmington could work together in order to bring needed services into this region, and what would be the best way to do that? And now you're seeing also improvements coming out of Cortez in that small airport there. And so again, are there things that we can do on a 4-state region that could help enhance the whole area here, looking at air travel, and that becoming a real plus
Right.
as we go out and market ourselves, and as we go and solicitate our capabilities of bringing in new industry and utilizing that as part of the selling points to the Four Corners region.
Sure. Well, we talk about outdoor recreation. If someone wants to come visit the area, but they can fly into an airport and have to drive 3 hours to get here, that may be less attractive than if they can fly right into town and,
Exactly.
and be on the mountain bike trails in 20 minutes.
Exactly.
And so that's all part of the conversation.
So that's all a part of the conversation. So looking at rail and looking at the airports and really looking at transportation as a whole, looking at the internet and how we might be able to enhance that, looking at how we may be able to look at regional transportation, also not just rail, but looking at our road systems and how we might be able to make changes there. Because again, one thing we're finding out is in Southwest Colorado, they've done a lot more planning in anticipation of driverless vehicles. And they're laying conduits so that they can begin to pull different fiber optic wiring through those, so that when the day comes when there is that capability, can they then use that as a part of their efforts to help with truck haulage and regular transportation, etc. And so those are some of the things we're looking at too, as we look at this broadband enhancement project, to see what do we need to do here in the Four Corners area. And case in point in what you were saying, as we begin to develop these things, how do we attract Congress? I mean, then we can bring in 4 congressional members talking about one area. We can bring 8 senators talking about one area. And these leaders can also bring their associated governors and state legislatures into the mix to really start looking at Four Corners and saying, here's a real opportunity to enhance each of our states. How can we bring that to this part of the country and really begin to look at new development that would enhance each of the 4 states?
Right. And we have just a couple of minutes remaining this morning, Mr. Trujillo, but it sounds like then in these times too, and even at a state level, when the state seems to be doing pretty well with the revenue coming in from southeast New Mexico, from that old oil and gas business, that maybe there's a way to tap into some of that state money to fund some economic development projects that are maybe more expensive than your run-of-the-mill capital outlay stuff.
That's right. That's right.
Could that be a railroad or?
It could be a railroad. It could be looking at, even Southwest Colorado is looking at regional transportation. Because one of the things that came out of our initial discussions with them is like they're veterans. They don't go to the VA hospital in Denver. They go to the VA hospital in Albuquerque.
Right. Because they can get there easier.
Because of the transportation,
Sure.
It's a lot easier. And so they're looking at, is there ways that we can enhance our regional transportation, looking at public transportation that will allow people to travel more easily from Southwest Colorado to Albuquerque or even here to Farmington. And because again, even there you see examples of where students would like to come to San Juan College or even go to Fort Lewis College. Are there ways that we can enhance local transportation that would allow students to do that? Because sometimes many of these students don't have vehicles.
Right.
And cost of living in Durango is pretty high.
True.
And so again, there's options there that, again, how do we work through these things? And so a lot of good things are coming out of our discussions as we begin to talk with one another and really begin to understand what possibilities there are looking into the future.
Well, it's exciting to hear you say that, and we look forward to having you come back and give us an update.
I'm looking forward to doing that, and I'd like to say, in closing, that we've got our membership meeting coming up on July 17th. It'll be there at the Quality Center for Business at 8:30 on the 17th. And I'd like to just invite folks out there with businesses or part of the industry, if you're curious and want to know what we're looking at and what we're wanting to do, looking in the future, I just want to invite you to come on out. If you could give our office a call, 505-566-3720. Just let Devin Scott know that you'd like to come on out, and we'll just make sure that we got things accommodated for the people coming out.
Good to know. Very good. And of course, Forset is supported by business memberships, correct?
Yes,
so
we got business
that's very
memberships as
important.
well as civic support, so it's across the board.
Very good. Well, Arvin Trujillo, thank you for coming in this morning. A great conversation.
Thank you, Scott.
You're
Good
very
being here.
welcome. Thank you very much. That's Arvin Trujillo, everyone, the new CEO of Four Corners Economic Development, my guest right here on KSJE. Back with more in just a moment. KSJE is supported by Sandstone Productions Outdoor Summer Theater, featuring the music of Elvis this summer. The Broadway musical All Shook Up will have you putting on your blue suede shoes and shaking your hips like it's now or never. The show performs every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday through July 27th. Enjoy an evening under the beautiful New Mexico stars. Concessions are available on site. Beer and wine from Wines of the San Juan available Fridays and Saturdays. Find out more about this jolt-worthy event at farmingtonnm.org/OST. KSJE is supported by San Juan Regional Medical Center, which is officially baby-friendly. This evidence-based initiative is designed to support mother-baby bonding and optimal infant feeding practices by upholding the 10 steps to successful breastfeeding. San Juan Regional Medical Center, officially baby-friendly, and serving the Four Corners since 1910. Find out more on